Okay, so things are going pretty much as you'd expect for this team so far this season. We aren't blowing teams out of the water across the board, but we're one of the best teams in the league. Great defense. Offense has been a little bit disappointing early, but I'm not losing sleep over it. Also, PJ and CJ are not averaging the amount of points that I would like, but it's something I'm honestly not too concerned about. Just because, in my experience, 2K's sim stats tend to be dumb, and I've kind of let go and just given up on having the numbers actually make sense. With this team, there really isn't much to say at the moment because this roster is basically just very good. They're pretty close to perfect, but not definitely perfect. There is one area on this roster that I wanted to point out and talk about in this video that I noticed playing in the last couple of games. When we have Ben out of the game, we don't have anyone who is good as a screener. So when I'm trying to run a pick and roll without Ben in the game, which is where I get most of my offense through CJ and sometimes PG as well, Aron Baynes isn't really getting the job done. He isn't necessarily bad, but he's not a threat as a roll man on the pop because he's not that fast rolling. And though his three-point attribute is respectable, due to his jump shot just being really slow and awkward to time, it's far from ideal. Also, PJ Tucker is a better shooter, but he's also slow as a roll man, and he's much better as a spot shooter than the pick and pop guy. In the past for our bench unit, we had Tobias Harris as the pick and pop option, and he was a very legitimate threat because of his jump shot, as well as his ability to put the ball on the floor. Now he's gone, so I think we're in need of a better option as a screener. Now, there are a few available players. Derek Favors is the backup center on the Grizzlies. He is a threat on the roll and a decent mid-range shooter. Rashawn Holmes is a very real lob threat out of the pick and roll, and he is available. Nerlens Noel is the third string center on the Knicks. He can be a lob threat. Mo Wagner is the fourth center on the Nets, and he seems like the best option on the surface, but he still gets a decent amount of minutes at the 4 on this team, and he's not all that old, while DeAndre is very old, and he's a poor defensive player, which I don't necessarily want. I think the Nets would just rather hold on to him, and I don't want to take too big of a hit in the defensive department. And ironically, another option is Al Horford. He is now just a 78 overall, only making $7 million a year, and he is a backup on the Pelicans now. Bringing him back would certainly be interesting. But the option I like the most by far is LaMarcus Aldridge. Now, I do want to point this out, though I'm sure most of you are aware, we are now in 2023. Aldridge is in his late 30s, and he's not the player that he used to be. He is now just a 78 overall, but he still has a really good mid-range shot and a respectable three-point shot. On top of that, he is a go-to post option. Another benefit that we got from Tobias off of the bench when he was here was that when there was a switch off of the screen, he could usually take advantage of it due to the size difference. Same thing would work with Aldridge on this team. We run a pick and roll, he gets a guard on him, and he makes short work of that guard. So to me, the best trade option here is Aldridge. As for who we move, well, Aldridge doesn't start for San Antonio anymore. He is old and on a pretty tradable contract, so I'm just going to send them a few second rounders, as well as Aron Baynes' contract. I know I'd like to quickly issue an apology to Aron Baynes fan club, but honestly, Baynes is pretty well not great at this point. He has his issues as a threat out of the pick and roll, as I have stated. On top of that, his defense isn't as great as it used to be, and really, he's so slow that the difference between him and Aldridge on that end isn't all that much, because they're both big guys who can stand in front of the basket but not really defend the perimeter. So I think this swap would help our offense while not really impacting our defense. So this is the trade. For those of you who might take issue with trading for a 37-year-old, well, Baynes is 36, so it's not making much of a difference. Though with Aldridge being 37, Tucker being 38, Dragic being 37, this bench unit is kind of a retirement home, but all these players are all still very good even in their old age, so I'm not complaining about it. But with that all out of the way, let's actually see Aldridge in action in his debut versus the Brooklyn Nets. Alright, so rematching against the team we played in the second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs last year, we have the Brooklyn Nets. This team does not have James Harden, as Ben Simmons gets this really interesting and one because there's so much time had passed that like James Harden was already on a different team in the Raptors, and different players went other places. So just forcing that trade, it would have been awkward as hell to do. And also, I kind of didn't want to play James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant on the same team. That was a very funny play that happened right there that I wanted to showcase. But right here, we get Aldridge in the game earlier than I will with my normal rotation. He's able to muscle up the post shot. Another benefit that comes with Aldridge is he's able to post up even on some bigs. But right here, we get the switch that I talked about, and Aldridge is able to take advantage of that rather easily. Once more now, he has DeAndre Jordan on him, and he's able to get this turnaround fadeaway over him. So on top of the fact that Aldridge now works as a screener because he pops right here for the mid-range shot, he's also just a good offensive player, which Aaron Baines was not. So our offense is going to be a lot easier with him when Ben is off of the floor because he's able to hit shots like this. Previous, that would have been Aaron Baines getting open for that shot, and that's really not a great shot for us. It's a much better shot with LaMarcus Aldridge, and when he would get a switch, he could take advantage of it if it was a really small guard, but he wasn't a good enough post player for that to be a go-to thing. Also, Aldridge, not a bad defensive player, got that block there on Kyrie, and that leads to the Paul George layup. I overcommit on that off-ball screen, and that gives Kyrie the easy three-pointer next to CJ. But the Nets, this has been a relatively close game, though we have a decent lead on the Nets. And then right here is Jeremy Grant loses the ball a little bit. Paul George is able to get that shot. But as I was saying about this Nets team with James Harden, that's just a team that's going to be a bitch to get through in 2K. How good they are in real life, that's up for debate, and we're going to have to wait and see on that. But how good they're going to be in 2K, I don't think there's a question about that. In fact, I feel bad for people who, the 5 people who use Play Now Online, because there's no way you're not running into that Nets team every single time. So yeah, third quarter now at this point, Ben Simmons gets the dunk right there. The issue with the screening thing that I mentioned earlier was that whenever we have Ben Simmons in, he's a very effective role option, obviously, and then also if he's able to get a switch, he's able to take advantage of that, but Aaron Baines just wasn't able to do that. PJ Tucker just wasn't able to do that, and the reason I chose PJ Tucker over Baines is just because PJ has been better this year. So pretty simple thing. Baines has been like a player who's not as good in 2K as he probably should be. So for that reason, he doesn't play very well offensively in this game, and he's still a good defensive player, and it sucks that he's not going to be a part of this championship team because he was one of the original players on this team that I rebuilt, but that's just how it is. As you see right here, Brooklyn is starting to get ahead of us here. It's not looking all that amazing for us. Also, Aldridge is going to shot the ball a good bit more times in this game than he's going to be under normal circumstances. That's anytime I get a new addition, I just want to show them off. So that's what happens there. Three-pointer right there for Dragic as he set his feet, but misses this free throw, and Kevin Durant gets stripped by PJ Tucker, and then I realize I'm open, and he drops that three-pointer. So a very nice hustle play there by PJ. Dragic able to get space off of that screen from Aldridge because he's an actual threat off of that screen. Dunked all over there by Kevin Durant, and now there's only 3 minutes left. I turn the ball over, and after this shot right here, we're down by 10. But Paul George gets this three-pointer over Joe Harris off of the catch. Drew Holiday gets a nice steal off of Karis LeVert, who was going for the backdoor cut, and then Paul George finds CJ for this three-pointer. So back-to-back three-pointers to make this a relatively close game. Good contest right there by Ben Simmons on the Kevin Durant fadeaway, and now Ben Simmons pushing the break. He's able to get this layup over Kyrie Irving, too small to handle him. And then nice switch right there. Kevin Durant gets an awkward pull-up shot right there, which he very easily could have dropped, but he did not. So now it's just a 4-point game, and Ben Simmons getting by and passing it to PJ Tucker. His name is Jared Allen. I don't know why I forgot Jared Allen's name right there. But here, charging foul, which is very tragic. I tried to coach challenge it, and the call stands. So we're not getting that bucket. Luckily for us, the Nets actually missed their shot, and we have an opportunity here, and I take advantage of it as Ben Simmons gets this rather easy layup. But on this play right here, Kevin Durant does what he does best, which is just get a bucket out of nothing, and trying to get the lead back. Paul George misses the layup over Joe Harris. And I realize people are going to clown on Paul George for this because, I mean, it's Paul George. But that's a layup that doesn't go in most of the time in this game, even though I think it probably should, because Paul George makes that shot in real life. And that was a decent look, but it didn't get off in time. And Paul George missed it, but a decent game for us against a very good team. CJ had probably his best game I've had with this team so far this year, really because he was paired well with Aldridge, and Aldridge had a good game, 5 for 11 with 11 points. But that is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more MyNBA content like this, and cue the outro music.